Good evening. Welcome, dear friend. Tonight we embark on a shared journey into the profound origins of a timeless wisdom. We will gently explore the initial chapters of Siddhartha Gautama's life, a narrative that lays the groundwork for the compassionate teachings of Buddhism. Before we settle completely, if your spirit feels inclined, please share the country you are in and your local time. From which corner of our vast world are you breathing with us now? This tranquil sanctuary offers an opportunity for inner cultivation, nurturing your awareness and awakening your innate wisdom. Here, you are simply invited to exist, to gently breathe, and to allow these narratives to guide you inward towards a deeper sense of self. Remember, everything you truly need already resides within you. Our shared moments merely serve to gently rekindle that intrinsic knowing. Should these reflections resonate deeply within your being, please feel free to return whenever you seek this quiet communion. Subscribe to keep this haven of peace readily accessible. Now, take a soft, deep breath and simply be present. As we drift into the quiet narrative of Siddhartha's early life, we begin our journey with his royal lineage and the profound prophecies that foretold his extraordinary destiny, the royal prophecy. Within the opulent walls of Kapilavastu, a city nestled in the foothills of the Himalayas, lived King Suddhodana and his radiant Queen Maya. Their palace, a marvel of ancient architecture, was adorned with intricate carvings and vibrant tapestries, reflecting the prosperity of the Shakya kingdom. Despite their immense wealth and power, a quiet sorrow lingered in their hearts, a deep longing for a child, an heir to their majestic throne. Their days were filled with royal duties and the laughter of their court, yet a profound emptiness persisted, a yearning that even the most exquisite silks and the most fragrant blossoms could not fully alleviate, reminding them of the inherent impermanence of worldly joys. This shared desire, a silent prayer echoing through the grand halls, became the most powerful force in their lives, shaping their hopes and dreams for the future. One night, as the moon cast a silvery glow over the sleeping city, Queen Maya experienced an extraordinary dream, vivid and luminous beyond anything she had ever known. In her vision, a magnificent white elephant, pure as freshly fallen snow, descended from the heavens, holding a white lotus flower in its trunk. With gentle grace, it circled her 3 times before entering her right side, filling her being with an immense sense of peace and profound joy. This was no ordinary dream. It was an experience steeped in celestial light and an undeniable feeling of sacredness, leaving an indelible mark upon her consciousness, a foretelling of a momentous event. The air around her seemed to shimmer with a quiet energy, a subtle yet powerful presence that lingered even after she awoke, filling the royal chambers with an ethereal calm. The queen awoke feeling refreshed and utterly transformed, recounting her vivid dream to King Suddhodana with a sense of wonder that transcended mere earthly experience. The king, deeply moved by the purity and symbolism of her vision, immediately summoned the most revered sages and astrologers from across the kingdom. These wise men, renowned for their profound understanding of cosmic signs and human destiny, were invited to interpret the queen's auspicious dream. Their faces, etched with years of contemplation and spiritual insight, listened intently to every detail, their eyes gleaming with the recognition of an extraordinary omen. The atmosphere in the royal court was charged with anticipation, as everyone sensed that something truly monumental was about to unfold, a revelation that would forever alter the course of their kingdom. The assembly of sages gathered in the royal court, their robes flowing around them like quiet rivers, their minds already attuned to the subtle vibrations of the universe. Their faces, weathered by time and illuminated by deep contemplation, bore expressions of serene wisdom. They sat in a circle, their eyes closed in silent meditation, allowing the profound significance of Queen Maya's dream to unfold within their inner vision. Each sage, a living repository of ancient knowledge and spiritual insight, brought forth their unique understanding, their collective wisdom converging on a single, astonishing interpretation. The air grew still, heavy with expectation, as the entire court awaited their pronouncement, sensing the gravity of the message they were about to deliver, a message that would resonate far beyond the palace walls. After much deliberation and profound contemplation, the sages delivered their momentous interpretation to the king and queen. With voices filled with reverence, they declared that Queen Maya would give birth to a son, a child of immense spiritual power and destined for greatness. This child, they prophesied, would follow one of two extraordinary paths. He would either become a Chakravartin, a great world ruler, a universal monarch whose reign would be marked by justice and prosperity, uniting all lands under his benevolent leadership, or he would renounce the world and achieve full awakening, becoming a Buddha, a fully enlightened being who would guide countless others towards liberation from suffering. This dual prophecy hung in the air, a declaration of immense potential, hinting at the profound choices that lay ahead. King Suddhodana's heart swelled with a complex mixture of joy and apprehension upon hearing the sage's words. The prospect of his son becoming a mighty emperor filled him with immense pride, envisioning a glorious future for his dynasty. However, the alternative path, that of a renunciate, stirred a deep unease within him, a fear of losing his beloved heir to a spiritual calling that would take him far from the throne. His desire for his son to follow the path of a ruler was absolute. He could not bear the thought of Siddhartha choosing a life of austerity and self-discovery. Thus, he immediately began to devise elaborate plans, determined to shield his future son from any sight or experience that might lead him towards the contemplative life, convinced that he could control destiny through careful orchestration. The prophecy, even before Siddhartha's birth, subtly introduced the profound concept of choice and the intricate dance of destiny, a foundational understanding within the Dharma. It underscored that while potential is inherent, the path taken is often shaped by both external circumstances and internal inclinations. The king's immediate desire to manipulate events, to force one outcome over another, illustrates the human tendency to resist the natural flow of life, to hold on to attachments rather than embrace the vastness of possibilities. This early narrative hints at the impermanence of all plans and the ultimate futility of trying to control the uncontrollable. It sets the stage for Siddhartha's eventual journey, demonstrating that true freedom often arises from letting go of preconceived notions and embracing authentic experience. The king's initial surge of joy at the prospect of an heir was swiftly followed by the gnawing anxiety of the second prophecy. This emotional shift perfectly illustrates the principle of impermanence, anicca, where even the most profound happiness is inherently fleeting, subject to the arising of its opposite. His elation was not a stable state, but rather a momentary experience, quickly overshadowed by the fear of loss and the desire to control. This early glimpse into Suddhodana's inner world reveals the suffering, trishna, that arises from craving a specific outcome and resisting the inherent uncertainty of existence. It shows how the mind, even in a state of great power and comfort, can be entangled by attachment to future possibilities, unable to rest in the equanimity of the present moment. Within the dual prophecy lay a profound wisdom, prajna, a recognition of the inherent potential within every being, a potential for both worldly accomplishment and ultimate liberation. It was not merely a prediction of what Siddhartha would become, but a statement about the vastness of his original nature, his Buddha mind. The sages, in their deep understanding, did not judge one path as superior to the other in terms of worldly value, but simply acknowledged the two profound directions his life could take. This understanding offered a subtle lesson in non-attachment, suggesting that true greatness lies not in clinging to a predetermined outcome, but in allowing life to unfold with full presence, trusting the deeper current of existence, knowing that true contentment comes from within. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the anticipation in Kapilavastu grew. Queen Maya carried her child with a serene grace, the dream having filled her with a profound inner peace. King Suddhodana, despite his anxieties, ensured every comfort for his queen, his mind constantly turning over the words of the sages. The kingdom buzzed with quiet excitement, unaware of the deep significance of the life stirring within the queen, a life destined to awaken to a truth that would resonate for millennia. This period of waiting, filled with both hope and subtle tension, slowly drew to a close, preparing the stage for the miraculous arrival that would forever change the world, ushering in a new chapter of profound significance. The miraculous birth. As the time for childbirth drew near, Queen Maya, following the ancient custom of her people, expressed a desire to return to her maternal home in Devadaha. This tradition, deeply rooted in the cultural fabric of the time, allowed women to be surrounded by their own family during this sacred and transformative experience. King Suddhodana, ever attentive to his beloved queen's wishes, made elaborate arrangements for her journey. A grand procession was prepared, adorned with vibrant flowers and flowing banners, accompanied by a retinue of devoted attendants and royal guards. The path was meticulously smoothed, and every comfort imaginable was provided to ensure her safety and ease, reflecting the king's deep love and his fervent hopes for his unborn child. The air was filled with a sense of hopeful anticipation, a quiet hum of excitement for the impending arrival. The journey was serene, passing through lush green landscapes and fragrant orchards, a gentle passage beneath the warm sun. On their way, the procession paused in a beautiful grove known as Lumbini, a place renowned for its tranquility and natural splendor. Here, sal trees stood tall and majestic, their branches adorned with delicate blossoms that perfumed the air with a sweet, intoxicating scent. The ground was soft and verdant, covered in a carpet of fresh grass, inviting a moment of peaceful respite. It was a place of profound natural beauty, a sanctuary where the sounds of chirping birds and the gentle rustling of leaves created a symphony of peace. This sacred grove, untouched by human artifice, seemed to hold a special energy, a quiet reverence that invited deep contemplation and a sense of profound connection to the earth's rhythms. As Queen Maya admired the exquisite beauty of the Lumbini Grove, a sudden gentle surge of labor began. She reached out, her hand gracefully extending to grasp the branch of a sal tree, which miraculously bent down to her touch, offering support and solace. There, standing upright, beneath the canopy of fragrant blossoms, she gave birth to her son. The birth was said to be effortless, devoid of pain or struggle, a testament to the purity and auspiciousness of the moment. The heavens themselves seemed to acknowledge this extraordinary event, showering the earth with a gentle rain of fragrant flowers, while soft celestial music resonated through the air. It was a birth unlike any other, marked by an ethereal calm and a profound sense of wonder, a moment where the divine touched the earthly realm. the infant prince emerged into the world with a radiant glow, his skin pure and unblemished, his eyes clear and profound. He did not cry, but instead, immediately after his birth, he took 7 steps in each of the 4 cardinal directions. With each step, a lotus flower blossomed on the ground beneath his tiny feet, a miraculous unfolding of beauty and grace. Then, with a voice that resonated with ancient wisdom, he declared, "I am supreme in the world. This is my last birth. There will be no more rebirth for me." This extraordinary pronouncement, uttered by a newborn, startled all who witnessed it, filling them with both awe and a deep sense of mystery. It was a declaration of his ultimate destiny, a foreshadowing of the profound liberation he would achieve, a testament to his unique spiritual journey. The significance of this miraculous birth, occurring in such a pristine and natural setting, speaks volumes about the original nature, the inherent purity of the Buddha mind. It suggests that true wisdom and liberation are not found in the constructs of society or the confines of a palace, but emerge from a deeper connection to the natural flow of existence, Wu Wei. The ease of the birth, the absence of suffering, hints at the possibility of a path free from the usual struggles, a path of equanimity and acceptance. The lotus flowers blooming with each step symbolize the awakening of compassion, metta, and wisdom, prajna, that would follow his journey, showing that even from the moment of birth, his presence brought forth beauty and enlightenment. The declaration of "This is my last birth" carries immense weight within Buddhist philosophy, directly addressing the concept of nirvana, the cessation of suffering, and the cycle of rebirth. It implies that Siddhartha was born with a profound awareness of his ultimate purpose, an intrinsic understanding of the path to liberation. This is not merely a statement of personal destiny, but a universal truth about the potential within each being to transcend the endless cycle of karma and achieve inner freedom. His words, though spoken by an infant, resonate with the wisdom of the ages, reminding us that the seeds of awakening are present from the very beginning, awaiting their cultivation through conscious breathing and mindful awareness. The celestial phenomena surrounding his birth, the fragrant rain, the soft music, the bending sal tree, serve as symbolic affirmations of the extraordinary significance of this event. They are not merely fantastical elements, but poetic expressions of the universe itself, acknowledging the arrival of a being destined to bring immense benefit to all sentient life. These details emphasize the sacred pauses in life, moments when the ordinary transcends into the extraordinary, reminding us to cultivate an observing awareness of the subtle wonders that unfold around us. They invite us to view life with a beginner's mind, Shoshin, open to the miraculous in the mundane, recognizing the profound interconnectedness of all phenomena. The immediate ability of the infant Siddhartha to walk and speak with such clarity defies conventional understanding, serving as a powerful metaphor for his inherent wisdom and spiritual maturity. It suggests that his awakening was not solely the result of external teachings or arduous practice, but an unfolding of an already present, pristine consciousness. This innate understanding, a deep self-knowledge, underscores the idea that the Buddha mind is not something acquired, but rather something rediscovered, an original nature that lies beneath layers of conditioning. His first steps, marked by lotus flowers, symbolize the noble eightfold path, the Magga, that he would later teach, a path that blossoms from the ground of our own existence. The tranquil setting of Lumbini, a place of natural beauty and serenity, stands in stark contrast to the human-made opulence of the palace. This choice of birthplace, away from the artificial constructs of royalty, subtly reinforces the idea that true spiritual insight often arises in connection with the natural world, in moments of simple presence. It hints at the detachment from worldly possessions and the embrace of simplicity that would characterize his later life. The calm and effortless birth, free from conventional suffering, suggests that the path to liberation can also be approached with a sense of ease and grace, rather than perpetual struggle, when one aligns with the natural flow of existence. This miraculous birth, steeped in wonder and prophecy, immediately set Siddhartha apart, signaling that his life would not be an ordinary one, but a journey of profound discovery and universal significance. It foreshadowed a path that would challenge conventional understanding and lead to an awakening that would illuminate the darkness of suffering for countless beings. The king's initial fears, rooted in the prophecy of renunciation, would only intensify as the child grew, leading to extraordinary measures to shield him from the realities of the world. With his arrival marked by such auspicious signs, the stage was now set for the unfolding of his early life within the protective yet ultimately confining walls of the royal palace. Naming and early wonders. Following the extraordinary birth, Queen Maya, though filled with a profound sense of peace and joy, sadly passed away 7 days later, fulfilling a spiritual destiny that allowed her to be reborn in a celestial realm. Her younger sister, Mahapajapati Gautami, stepped forward with immense compassion and devotion, taking on the role of Siddhartha's foster mother. She nurtured the infant prince with unwavering love and care, ensuring he received all the tenderness and sustenance a newborn requires. This compassionate act, a testament to Karuna, provided Siddhartha with a nurturing environment, even in the face of early loss, demonstrating that even amidst sorrow, acts of selfless love can bring comfort and continuity, shaping the initial experiences of a life destined for greatness. A grand naming ceremony was held with all due royal pomp and splendor, a significant event in the life of any prince. King Suddhodana, still deeply affected by the dual prophecy, gathered the most esteemed Brahmins and astrologers to bestow a name upon his son, one that would reflect his potential and destiny. After much deliberation and consultation of sacred texts, the child was named Siddhartha, a name meaning he who achieves his aim, or he who has accomplished his goal. This name, full of foresight and profound meaning, subtly acknowledged the inherent wisdom, prajna, and determination that would guide his life's journey, hinting at the ultimate aim of liberation that he would one day achieve, a destiny far grander than any earthly kingdom. Among the 8 sages present at the naming ceremony, one young and particularly insightful Brahmin named Kaundinya stood apart. While the others predicted that Siddhartha would either become a great king or a Buddha, Kaundinya alone, with unwavering conviction, declared that the prince would unequivocally become a Buddha. His profound observation, unclouded by attachment to worldly power, saw beyond the immediate royal lineage and recognized the deep spiritual current flowing within the infant. This singular, resolute prophecy further intensified King Suddhodana's anxieties, making the possibility of renunciation feel far more imminent and real, fueling his determination to prevent such an outcome, to keep his son firmly on the path of an earthly ruler bound to the palace. The king's heart was now torn between immense pride in his son's auspicious birth and the gnawing fear that he would lose him to the spiritual path. He yearned for Siddhartha to fulfill the role of a Chakravartin, a powerful emperor who would expand the Shakya kingdom's influence and secure its legacy. The thought of Siddhartha abandoning his royal duties, his family, and his future throne for a life of asceticism was unbearable. This internal conflict, a vivid display of suffering, Trishna, arising from craving a specific future, drove him to take extreme measures. He became consumed by the desire to control Siddhartha's environment, believing that by shielding him from all forms of suffering and spiritual contemplation, he could steer his destiny. To counteract the prophecy of renunciation, King Suddhodana embarked on an ambitious project to create a perfect, enclosed world within the palace walls, a veritable paradise designed to immerse Siddhartha in constant pleasure and sensory delight. He ordered the construction of 3 magnificent palaces, one for each season, each more opulent than the last. These palaces were to be filled with every imaginable luxury: exquisite gardens, sparkling fountains, beautiful musicians, and graceful dancers. His intention was clear: to ensure that Siddhartha never encountered any sight, sound, or experience that might awaken within him the truth of impermanence, anicca, or the reality of human suffering, anatta. The king's efforts to isolate Siddhartha were meticulous and exhaustive. Every servant, every guard, every musician was carefully vetted to ensure they would never speak of old age, sickness, death, or spiritual seeking. The palace grounds were transformed into a vibrant, youthful sanctuary where only beauty and joy were permitted to exist. Any signs of decay or distress were swiftly removed, creating an artificial reality where life seemed eternally pleasant and without challenge. This elaborate illusion was designed to foster a sense of contentment, sufficiency, and a deep attachment to worldly pleasures, effectively attempting to rewrite the prince's destiny by controlling his entire lived experience, an immense undertaking born of a father's profound love and fear. Despite the king's grand design, the young Siddhartha, even in his earliest years, displayed an unusual depth of character, a quiet thoughtfulness that set him apart from other children. He was naturally intelligent, quick to learn, and possessed a gentle disposition. Yet, beneath the surface of his princely demeanor, there was a subtle undercurrent of observation, an innate observing awareness that seemed to penetrate beyond the superficial. While playing with other children, he would often pause, his gaze distant, as if contemplating something far beyond the immediate joy of the game, a quiet presence that hinted at a deeper understanding of the world around him. These early indications of Siddhartha's unique nature, his innate capacity for full presence and mindful observation, were subtle, perhaps imperceptible to most, but they were the nascent stirrings of his future awakening. They suggested that the seeds of wisdom, prajna, and self-knowledge were already germinating within him, even within the confines of his golden cage. The king's elaborate efforts to create a perfect, suffering-free environment, while born of love, inadvertently became a testament to the inescapable truth of anicca, impermanence, and the ultimate futility of trying to control the uncontrollable. True inner freedom, mushin, was an internal journey, not an external construct, and it would eventually find its way to him. The king's desperate measures to shield Siddhartha from the world, though well-intentioned, ultimately created a profound irony. By attempting to prevent suffering, he inadvertently set the stage for its eventual, more impactful discovery. The more he tried to contain Siddhartha, the more the prince's innate curiosity and deep empathy would be piqued. This dynamic highlights the principle of non-attachment, the king's intense craving. Trishna for a specific future for his son only tightened the bonds of his own suffering, creating a cycle of anxiety despite all his power and wealth. It reveals that peace, nirvana, cannot be enforced externally, but must arise from an internal letting go and acceptance of reality as it is. As Siddhartha grew within the palace, surrounded by every imaginable comfort and shielded from all forms of suffering, his days were filled with learning and royal pursuits. Yet a quiet sense of something missing would slowly begin to stir within him. The very perfection of his environment, so meticulously crafted to ensure his contentment, would, ironically, become the catalyst for his deepest questions. The stage was thus perfectly set for his first profound encounter with the realities of life beyond the palace walls, an experience that would forever alter his perception and set him firmly on the path towards self-discovery and enlightenment. A palace of perfect isolation. Driven by his profound desire to see Siddhartha fulfill the prophecy of a great world ruler, King Suddhodana spared no expense in constructing an environment of unparalleled luxury and absolute isolation. His aim was to meticulously craft a reality devoid of any sight, sound, or hint of suffering, old age, sickness, or death. 3 magnificent palaces were built, each designed for a different season, ensuring that Siddhartha would always experience optimal comfort and delight. These structures were architectural marvels, adorned with precious jewels, intricate frescoes, and flowing silks, reflecting the pinnacle of human artistry and the king's boundless devotion. The very air within these walls was curated, always fragrant with exotic blossoms, a testament to the king's desperate efforts to control every aspect of his son's experience, believing that such perfect external conditions would guarantee a life of perpetual contentment. The palace grounds were an expansive, vibrant tapestry of meticulously tended gardens, unlike any other in the world. Sparkling fountains cascaded into lotus ponds, their surfaces alive with the gentle dance of colorful fish. Exotic birds with iridescent plumage sang melodious tunes from hidden alcoves, their songs a constant backdrop to the prince's days. Every tree, every flower, every blade of grass was chosen for its beauty and vitality, ensuring that only images of youth and flourishing life met Siddhartha's gaze. The paths were always swept clean, the air always fresh, creating an illusion of eternal spring where the concept of decay or impermanence, anicca, simply did not exist. This verdant paradise was a golden cage, designed to enthrall the senses and capture the mind in an endless cycle of pleasure. Within these lavish confines, Siddhartha was surrounded by only the most youthful and beautiful attendants, their laughter and songs filling the air with an intoxicating energy. No one over the age of 30 was permitted within his sight, and any servant who showed signs of illness or aging was immediately removed from his presence. The king's decree was absolute. Siddhartha must never witness the natural processes of decline or the harsh realities of human frailty. This created an artificial world where the passing of time seemed to hold no sway, where every face reflected vigor and vitality, fostering a profound sense of anatta, a denial of the inherent nature of self and its journey through life, meticulously crafted to prevent any questioning. The palace was a fortress of pleasure, meticulously guarded to prevent any unwelcome truths from penetrating its walls. High walls and vigilant sentries ensured that no outsider, no messenger bearing ill tidings, and no glimpse of the suffering world beyond could reach the prince. Every aspect of his sensory experience was curated to promote delight. The finest silks for his skin, the sweetest music for his ears, the most exquisite foods for his palate, and the most captivating dances for his eyes. This constant bombardment of pleasant sensations was intended to keep his mind perpetually engaged in superficial enjoyment, preventing any space for introspection or the dawning of an observing awareness that might question his gilded reality. This carefully constructed environment, though seemingly perfect, was in essence a profound act of non-attachment in reverse. Instead of letting go, The king was clinging with fierce determination to an imagined future for his son, attempting to create a permanent state of happiness through external means. This craving Trishna for control and for a specific outcome ironically introduced a subtle form of suffering, not for Siddhartha directly at this stage, but for the king himself, whose peace was constantly threatened by the possibility of his plans failing. It highlights how clinging to desires, even well-intentioned ones, can lead to inner turmoil and a constant state of vigilance, a stark contrast to the inner peace found in acceptance. The isolation of Siddhartha within this opulent bubble was intended to prevent the development of his wisdom, prajna, by denying him the very experiences that spark deep inquiry. By removing all causes for suffering, the king hoped to remove the need for its cessation, for nirvana. However, true wisdom does not arise from ignorance, but from a clear-eyed understanding of reality, including its difficult aspects. This grand experiment in controlled happiness inadvertently created the perfect conditions for a profound yearning to emerge, a subtle sense of emptiness, sunyata, that no amount of external pleasure could fill, eventually leading to a deeper search for truth. The king's efforts, while born of love, inadvertently denied Siddhartha the opportunity to develop equanimity, the ability to meet all experiences with an even mind. By shielding him from discomfort, he was also shielding him from the opportunities to practice patience, resilience, and compassion metta. A life without challenge, without the sight of another's pain, prevents the natural unfolding of karuna, the sympathetic joy for others. This meticulously crafted ignorance, though intended to secure his happiness, ultimately created a void, a deep absence of connection to the shared human experience, which would later become a powerful catalyst for his spiritual journey beyond the palace gates. The palace, in its very perfection, became a teacher of impermanence, anicca, in a subtle way. Even though there were no obvious signs of decay, the constant need to maintain such an illusion highlighted the fleeting nature of all constructed realities. The very effort required to keep suffering at bay revealed its pervasive presence, lurking just beyond the carefully manicured facade. Siddhartha, with his innate observing awareness, would eventually perceive the artificiality of this existence, recognizing that true contentment, nirvana, could not be found in the endless pursuit of external pleasures or the denial of reality, but in a deeper understanding of the Dharma. This period of Siddhartha's life, spent in a world of curated beauty and pleasure, offers a powerful lesson in the nature of craving and attachment. It demonstrates that even when all desires are seemingly fulfilled, a deeper dissatisfaction can arise if one is disconnected from the full spectrum of reality. The king's misguided attempt to create a permanent state of bliss through external means ultimately proved futile, as the human spirit, especially one as profound as Siddhartha's, naturally yearns for truth and freedom, for a direct experience of the world as it is, not as it is manufactured to be. As Siddhartha grew within this meticulously controlled environment, his intellect sharpened and his skills developed. He mastered every art and science presented to him, yet a quiet, unnameable yearning persisted within his heart, a subtle sense that something essential lay beyond the vibrant walls of his gilded existence. This inner stirring, a nascent call towards a deeper understanding, would begin to manifest in his education and royal pursuits, even as the king continued his relentless efforts to bind him to the material world. Education and royal pursuits. From a very young age, Siddhartha displayed an extraordinary intellect and a remarkable capacity for learning that far surpassed his peers. The finest tutors and scholars from across the kingdom were brought to the palace to educate the young prince in every field of knowledge deemed essential for a future ruler. He immersed himself in ancient scriptures, philosophy, mathematics, and the arts, absorbing complex concepts with effortless ease. His mind, sharp and inquisitive, quickly grasped intricate theories and subtle distinctions, often posing questions that challenged the very foundations of his teacher's understanding, revealing an innate wisdom, prajna, that transcended mere academic brilliance, hinting at a profound inherent self-knowledge. Siddhartha excelled not only in scholarly pursuits, but also in the martial arts, demonstrating a natural aptitude for physical prowess and strategic thinking. He mastered archery with precision, his arrows consistently hitting their mark with uncanny accuracy. He became skilled in swordsmanship, horsemanship, and wrestling, displaying a quiet strength and a disciplined focus that impressed his instructors. These achievements were celebrated by his father, King Suddhodana, who saw in his son's accomplishments the clear makings of a powerful and capable ruler, a leader who could defend his kingdom and command respect, further reinforcing the king's hope that Siddhartha would embrace his royal destiny and the path of worldly power. Despite his mastery in all these diverse fields, a subtle disquiet began to stir within Siddhartha's heart. While he engaged fully in his lessons and excelled in his royal duties, there was an underlying sense of something unfulfilled, a quiet questioning of the ultimate purpose of these pursuits. The pursuit of knowledge and skill, though valuable, did not seem to touch the deepest core of his being. He would often retreat into moments of quiet reflection, his mind pondering questions that went beyond the curriculum, seeking a meaning that transcended the acquisition of facts or the perfection of techniques, hinting at a search for deeper contentment and inner peace. The king, observing Siddhartha's occasional contemplative moods, intensified his efforts to keep his son immersed in worldly activities and pleasures, hoping to distract him from any introspective tendencies. He arranged lavish festivals, musical performances, and elaborate games, ensuring that Siddhartha's days were packed with constant stimulation and entertainment. He believed that a mind kept busy with enjoyable distractions would have no room for philosophical inquiry or the unsettling thoughts of suffering or impermanence, anicca. This constant stream of sensory input was a deliberate attempt to cultivate attachment and craving, trishna, for the material world, thereby binding Siddhartha to his royal destiny. Siddhartha, though participating gracefully in all these activities, never seemed to be fully consumed by them. He moved through the celebrations with a quiet dignity, observing the fleeting nature of the revelry, the temporary joy it brought, and the inevitable return to a state of ordinary existence. He noticed the laughter, the music, the dancing, but also perceived the underlying impermanence of these sensations, understanding that they were transient and could not offer lasting peace, nirvana. This subtle detachment, a nascent non-attachment, allowed him to experience the world without being completely entangled by its allure, a deep observing awareness beginning to take root. This early period of Siddhartha's life, where he excelled in all conventional measures of success, offers a profound insight into the concept of emptiness, sunyata. Even with every external advantage and achievement, a sense of something missing can persist if one is not connected to their original nature. His intellectual brilliance and physical prowess, while impressive, did not inherently bring him a sense of ultimate fulfillment, suggesting that true meaning lies beyond the accumulation of skills or knowledge, pointing towards the need for a deeper, more internal exploration, a path of self-knowledge that transcends the superficial. The king's constant efforts to fill Siddhartha's life with pleasure, while well-intentioned, inadvertently highlighted the limitations of seeking happiness solely through external means. It demonstrated that even the most perfect external conditions cannot guarantee inner peace if the mind is not at rest. This relentless pursuit of sensory gratification, rather than satisfying the prince, subtly fueled his growing awareness of the suffering inherent in craving and attachment. It implicitly taught him that true contentment, nirvana, arises not from accumulation, but from a profound understanding and acceptance of the natural flow of existence, wu wei, and the letting go of what does not serve. Siddhartha's quiet observation of the world, even within the palace, was an early manifestation of mindfulness, sati. He was present, yet not completely absorbed, allowing him to perceive the subtle nuances of impermanence and the interconnectedness of all phenomena. This equanimous observation, vipassana, allowed him to see beyond the surface, recognizing that true freedom, mushin, was not about escaping reality, but about understanding it fully. His inherent capacity for compassion, karuna, was also evident in his gentle nature, a quiet empathy that would later extend to all beings, forming the bedrock of his teachings. His early education, though comprehensive, lacked a crucial element, a direct confrontation with the realities of human existence beyond the palace walls. It prepared him for kingship, but not for the deeper questions of life, death, and suffering. This gap, this unspoken void in his learning, would eventually compel him to seek answers beyond the confines of his royal upbringing. The very perfection of his education, paradoxically, created a hunger for a different kind of wisdom, a more profound understanding of the Dharma that could only be found through direct experience and personal inquiry. This growing intellectual curiosity and subtle emotional stirring within Siddhartha, even amidst his royal accomplishments, hinted at the profound journey that awaited him. He was a prince of extraordinary gifts, yet his spirit yearned for something more, something fundamental that the palace with all its splendor could not provide. This internal readiness would soon be met by an external event that would forever change the course of his life, his first deep contemplation of the natural world, an experience that would begin to unravel the king's carefully constructed illusion. The first contemplation. One spring morning, when Siddhartha was still a young boy, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, King Suddhodana took him to witness the annual ploughing festival, a vibrant and essential ritual for the agricultural kingdom. This was a rare occasion for Siddhartha to step beyond the meticulously guarded palace walls, albeit to a controlled, celebratory environment. The air buzzed with the energy of the villagers, their faces etched with anticipation and hard work. Farmers, with their strong, sun-kissed bodies, guided oxen through the fields, their ploughs breaking the rich, dark earth. The sounds of traditional music, the rhythmic thud of hooves, and the cheerful shouts of the workers filled the air, creating a lively spectacle that was intended to impress upon the young prince the prosperity and vitality of his future domain. As Siddhartha observed the festival from a shaded pavilion, his sensitive nature began to perceive a deeper, more poignant reality beneath the surface of the joyous celebration. He watched as the heavy ploughs turned the soil, inadvertently unearthing tiny insects and worms, exposing them to the harsh sunlight and the hungry beaks of birds. He saw the struggle of the oxen, their flanks heaving with effort under the yoke, sweat glistening on their powerful bodies. A profound sense of empathy, karuna, arose within him, a deep connection to the suffering of these small creatures and the toil of the farmers. The joyous festival, meant to showcase life's bounty, instead revealed to him the inherent cycle of life, death, and struggle, anicca, in its rawest form. Overwhelmed by this unexpected glimpse into the interconnectedness of suffering, Siddhartha quietly moved away from the bustling crowd, seeking solace and understanding beneath the cool shade of a rose apple tree. He sat down, crossing his legs, and without any formal instruction, his mind naturally settled into a state of profound concentration. Samadhi. He began to observe his breath, the gentle rhythm of inhale and exhale, allowing his awareness, sati, to deepen. The sounds of the festival faded into the background, and his attention turned inward to the quiet space within his own being. A nascent practice of conscious breathing, anapanasati, emerging spontaneously. In this deep state of meditation, Siddhartha experienced a profound sense of inner peace, nirvana, a stillness unlike anything he had ever known within the palace walls. He felt a release from the agitation of the external world, a serene spaciousness opening within his mind. The suffering he had witnessed, though still present in his memory, did not disturb the profound calm that enveloped him. This was not a suppression of emotion, but an equanimous observation, vipassana, a clear-eyed seeing of reality without being overwhelmed by it. In this sacred pause, he touched upon his original nature, his Buddha mind, experiencing a taste of true inner freedom, mushin, a state of mind beyond all craving. This spontaneous meditation under the rose apple tree was a pivotal moment in Siddhartha's childhood, a direct, unmediated experience of the Dharma. It was his first clear glimpse into the cessation, nirodha, of suffering, not through external avoidance, but through internal cultivation and mindful presence. This profound insight, arising naturally from his compassionate heart and sharp observing awareness, revealed to him a path magga that transcended the limited pleasures of the palace and the inherent struggles of the world outside. It showed him that true contentment, sufficiency, was an internal state, independent of external conditions, a truth far more profound than any royal decree. The king's efforts to shield Siddhartha from suffering were momentarily and profoundly circumvented by this direct encounter with the natural world. The simple act of ploughing, a symbol of life and sustenance, revealed the interconnectedness of existence, including its painful aspects. This experience underscored the principle of impermanence, anicca, showing that all living things are subject to change and decay, and that clinging trishna to the illusion of unchanging happiness only leads to deeper suffering. Siddhartha's inherent empathy, karuna, allowed him to perceive this truth, sparking a deep yearning for a way to alleviate not just his own potential suffering, but the suffering of all beings. This first contemplation also marked the subtle beginning of Siddhartha's detachment, his non-attachment to the illusions of the material world. While he was not yet ready to renounce his princely life, this experience planted a deep seed of understanding that true peace lay beyond external circumstances. He realized that the king's carefully constructed paradise, designed to prevent suffering, was ultimately an incomplete reality, unable to address the fundamental truths of existence. This newfound wisdom, prajna, born of direct experience, began to gently guide his internal compass towards a path of deeper inquiry and self-knowledge, moving him towards an understanding of Wu Wei, the natural flow of life. The rose apple tree, beneath which Siddhartha found this profound stillness, became a symbol of his awakening, a sacred space where the Buddha mind began to blossom. It represents the power of nature to inspire contemplation and connect us to our deeper selves, offering a sanctuary for introspection and the cultivation of inner peace. This spontaneous act of meditation, without formal guidance, highlights the inherent capacity within each of us for awakening, for discovering our original nature through conscious breathing and a beginner's mind, Shoshin. It reminds us that sometimes the most profound insights arise in moments of quiet simplicity, when we allow ourselves to simply be present. The experience at the ploughing festival, though brief, left an indelible mark on Siddhartha. It was his first conscious encounter with the first noble truth, that life contains suffering, and his first intuitive glimpse of the third noble truth, the possibility of its cessation. This profound realization, even at a young age, began to shape his internal landscape, deepening his contemplative nature and fueling a quiet but persistent quest for ultimate truth. The king's efforts to keep him innocent of suffering were beginning to unravel, not through rebellion, but through the gentle, yet undeniable, awakening of Siddhartha's own innate wisdom and compassion. This profound moment of spontaneous meditation, a direct experience of inner peace, would undoubtedly intensify King Suddhodana's concerns. The king, already anxious about the prophecy of renunciation, would likely interpret Siddhartha's quiet introspection as a dangerous sign, a confirmation of his fears. This would compel him to redouble his efforts, employing even more elaborate measures to immerse his son in worldly pleasures, hoping to distract him from such contemplative inclinations and firmly bind him to the royal path. The king's intensified efforts. The news of Siddhartha's profound meditative experience at the ploughing festival, though perhaps embellished or subtly altered in its retelling, eventually reached King Suddhodana. The king, already burdened by the prophecy of renunciation, viewed this quiet introspection as a dangerous confirmation of his deepest fears. He saw it not as a moment of nascent wisdom, prajna, but as a threat to his meticulously laid plans for his son's future as a world ruler. His anxiety, a form of suffering, trishna, born of profound attachment to a specific outcome, intensified, driving him to even more desperate and elaborate measures to keep Siddhartha firmly entrenched in worldly pleasures and away from any spiritual inclinations. With renewed urgency, King Suddhodana decreed that Siddhartha must never again be exposed to any sight or sound that might remind him of suffering, old age, sickness, or death. He ordered the construction of even higher walls around the palace and increased the number of guards, ensuring that no unapproved person or information could penetrate his son's carefully curated reality. The king's belief was simple. If Siddhartha never encountered the harsh realities of life, he would never feel the need to seek a path beyond them. This was an extreme attempt to control his son's destiny, a misguided effort to manipulate his experiences to prevent his awakening to the Dharma. The palace became a constant theater of sensory delight, a vibrant spectacle designed to overwhelm and captivate Siddhartha's mind. Musicians played enchanting melodies day and night, their instruments filling the air with sweet harmonies. Beautiful dancers, adorned in shimmering silks and sparkling jewels, performed graceful movements, their forms a vision of youth and vitality. The most exquisite foods, prepared by master chefs, were presented at every meal, tantalizing his palate with rich flavors and delicate aromas. Every moment of Siddhartha's day was scheduled with activities intended to promote pleasure and divert his attention from any contemplative thought, ensuring his full presence was directed outwards. The king personally oversaw the selection of Siddhartha's companions, ensuring they were all young, vibrant, and entirely devoted to pleasure. He encouraged lively conversations, games, and celebrations, fostering an atmosphere where serious reflection or philosophical discussion was gently but firmly discouraged. The goal was to create an environment so rich in superficial enjoyment that any deeper yearning or sense of emptiness, sunyata, would be drowned out by the constant stream of delightful sensations. This was a deliberate attempt to cultivate attachment and craving, trishna, for worldly existence, hoping to bind Siddhartha to the throne through hedonism. This intensified effort by the king highlights the profound human tendency to resist impermanence, anicca, and to cling to what we believe will bring happiness, even if it is an illusion. His actions, though born of love for his son, were ultimately a source of his own suffering, as he lived in constant fear of losing Siddhartha to a path he did not understand or desire. This struggle against the natural flow of life, Wu Wei, demonstrates how attachment, rather than bringing peace, often leads to anxiety and a relentless need for control, preventing the acceptance of what is. The palace, in its heightened state of forced revelry, became a powerful, albeit unintentional teacher of anatta, the concept of no self. By constantly being surrounded by external stimuli, Siddhartha was subtly being taught to identify with fleeting sensations and external pleasures, rather than with a stable, inner core. However, this very excess would eventually lead him to question the nature of identity and happiness, realizing that true contentment, nirvana, does not reside in external conditions, but in the liberation from craving and the cultivation of an observing awareness of the true nature of existence. The king's strategy, while elaborate, contained an inherent flaw. True inner peace, mushin, and wisdom, prajna, cannot be imposed or suppressed by external means. They arise from an internal process of self-knowledge and direct experience. By denying Siddhartha the opportunity to encounter the full spectrum of reality, the king inadvertently fueled his son's innate curiosity and deepened his capacity for subtle observation. The very perfection of the illusion, the constant pressure to be joyful, would eventually create a profound contrast that would highlight the artificiality of his existence, leading him to seek a more authentic truth. Siddhartha, with his growing mindfulness, sati, and equanimous observation, vipassana, continued to move through this world of enforced pleasure with a quiet grace. He participated in the festivities, but his inner being remained somewhat detached, his non-attachment growing stronger with each passing day. He saw the beauty, heard the music, and tasted the food, but he also perceived the fleeting nature of it all. The anicca, the absence of lasting satisfaction in mere sensory indulgence. This internal space, this sacred pause, allowed him to maintain a sense of inner freedom even amidst the king's most strenuous efforts to bind him. This period of intensified pleasure, rather than diverting Siddhartha, actually sharpened his awareness of the limitations of external happiness. It became a powerful, inverse lesson in the noble truths, demonstrating that craving, trishna, for pleasure, even when seemingly fulfilled, ultimately leads to a subtle form of suffering, a dissatisfaction that cannot be appeased by more of the same. It set the stage for his eventual realization that true peace, nirvana, could only be found by transcending these worldly attachments and seeking a deeper, more profound understanding of the Dharma. As Siddhartha navigated this world of orchestrated delight, his understanding of the world, though still limited by the palace walls, deepened in unexpected ways. His quiet observations, his moments of introspection, were slowly preparing him for the next significant step in his young life: marriage and the responsibilities of family, experiences that would further test the boundaries of the king's carefully constructed illusion and deepen his connection to the human experience, marriage and family life. As Siddhartha blossomed into a young man of remarkable grace and intellect, King Suddhodana's concerns about the prophecy of renunciation grew more urgent. He believed that the bonds of family and the responsibilities of a household would firmly anchor Siddhartha to the worldly path, making the idea of abandoning his throne unthinkable. Thus, he began to search for a suitable bride, one who was not only beautiful and virtuous, but also of noble lineage. After careful consideration and many consultations, his choice fell upon Princess Yasodhara, a woman renowned for her exquisite beauty, gentle disposition, and keen intelligence, a perfect match for the prince in every conceivable way, destined to be his partner in the gilded cage. Princess Yasodhara, a cousin of Siddhartha and daughter of King Superbuddha, was indeed a vision of grace and charm. Their wedding was a magnificent affair, celebrated with unparalleled pomp and festivity throughout Kapilavastu. The entire kingdom rejoiced, seeing in this union the promise of a glorious future for the Shakya dynasty. Siddhartha and Yasodhara were deeply devoted to each other, their love blossoming amidst the luxurious confines of the palace. Their days were filled with companionship, shared laughter, and the gentle rhythm of royal life, a seemingly perfect existence crafted to fulfill every desire and prevent any thoughts of detachment or impermanence, anicca, from entering their minds. For several years, Siddhartha and Yasodhara lived a life of idyllic comfort and joy within the palace walls. Their chambers were adorned with the finest silks, their meals were feasts of exquisite flavors, and their evenings were filled with music and dance. Yasodhara, with her radiant presence, brought a profound warmth and tenderness to Siddhartha's life, deepening his connection to human relationships. The king observed their happiness with immense satisfaction, believing that the strong bonds of affection and the pleasures of conjugal life would surely prevent his son from ever considering the austere path of a renunciate, thus securing his royal future and the continuity of the kingdom. The birth of their son, Rahula, meaning fetter or impediment, further deepened Siddhartha's immersion in family life. This joyous event was met with widespread celebration, bringing immense happiness to the royal family and solidifying Siddhartha's role as a father and future king. Rahula, a beautiful and spirited child, became a source of profound love and attachment for Siddhartha. His innocent laughter and playful antics filled the palace with a new kind of warmth, creating a powerful emotional bond that, from the king's perspective, was the ultimate safeguard against the prophecy of renunciation, a strong anchor to the world of human connection and responsibility. This period of Siddhartha's life, filled with the joys of marriage and fatherhood, represents the profound human experience of love and attachment. It shows that even a being destined for enlightenment can fully engage with and appreciate the warmth of human connection. However, from a Buddhist perspective, even these most cherished relationships, while beautiful, are ultimately subject to impermanence, anicca, and can become sources of suffering, trishna, if one clings to them with craving. Siddhartha's experience here would later inform his understanding of the nature of attachment and the path to non-attachment, recognizing that true inner freedom arises from a deeper understanding of these bonds. The name Rahula, meaning fetter, carries a profound symbolic weight in the narrative of Siddhartha's journey. While a term of endearment from his family, it also subtly foreshadowed the internal struggle Siddhartha would face between his deep love for his family and his undeniable call to seek ultimate liberation. This name highlights the concept of craving, trishna, and how even the most beautiful attachments can become impediments to the path of inner freedom, mushin, if one is not mindful of their nature. It emphasizes that the path to cessation, nirodha, of suffering often involves a re-evaluation of what truly binds us and what truly liberates us, urging a deeper self-knowledge. The king's strategy, by providing Siddhartha with a loving wife and a beloved son, was an attempt to fulfill every aspect of worldly happiness, hoping to leave no room for spiritual longing. He believed that a life complete with family, wealth, and power would inherently lead to contentment, sufficiency, and thus prevent any desire for a path beyond the palace. However, true contentment, nirvana, as Siddhartha would eventually discover, does not come from the accumulation of external conditions, but from an internal state of non-attachment and wisdom, prajna, a realization that transcends all worldly bonds. Even amidst the profound joys of family life, Siddhartha's innate observing awareness, sati, remained active. He cherished his wife and son deeply, yet a subtle part of him continued to perceive the impermanence, anicca, of these precious moments. He understood that all happiness, however intense, is transient, and that true peace, nirvana, could not be found in clinging to what is constantly changing. This equanimous observation, vipassana, allowed him to experience love fully, yet without the clinging that leads to suffering, subtly preparing him for the deeper teachings of the Dharma and the path to inner freedom. This period of his life, rich with human connection, served as an essential foundation for Siddhartha's later teachings on compassion, metta, and karuna. By experiencing profound love and the bonds of family, he gained a deep understanding of the human heart's capacity for connection and its susceptibility to suffering when those connections are threatened. This personal experience would later inform his universal message of relieving suffering for all beings, demonstrating that his path to enlightenment was not one of cold detachment, but of profound empathy, rooted in a direct understanding of the human condition. Despite the deep love for his family and the comfort of his royal life, the subtle stirrings of a deeper quest persisted within Siddhartha. The king's carefully constructed paradise, now complete with a wife and son, was still a cage, however golden. The perfection of his existence, paradoxically, only sharpened his awareness of something missing, a sense of emptiness, sunyata, that no amount of worldly pleasure could fill. This quiet yearning would soon lead him to look beyond the immediate joys of his life, prompting him to seek a broader understanding of existence within the very confines of his opulent surroundings. The Golden Cage. King Suddhodana's relentless determination to shield Siddhartha from the world's harsh realities manifested most vividly in the creation of the palace gardens. These were not merely ornamental spaces, but vast, meticulously designed paradises, each one a testament to human ingenuity and the king's boundless resources. Imagine sprawling emerald lawns stretching to the horizon, dotted with ancient, majestic trees whose blossoms painted the air with vibrant hues and intoxicating scents. Crystal-clear streams meandered through the landscape, their gentle murmurs providing a soothing soundtrack, while cascading waterfalls created shimmering veils of mist, cooling the air and adding to the ethereal beauty. Every detail of these gardens was curated to evoke perpetual delight and youth. Flowers were planted in such a way that there was always something in bloom, ensuring a continuous tapestry of color and fragrance, defying the natural cycle of seasons and decay. Exotic birds, with plumage like living jewels, flitted among the branches, their songs a constant symphony of joy. Gentle deer grazed peacefully on the soft grass, unafraid of human presence, adding to the idyllic scene. These gardens were a masterpiece of illusion, a world where the concept of impermanence, anicca, was meticulously erased, replaced by an endless presentation of flourishing life and beauty, a constant feast for the senses. Within these enchanted spaces, Siddhartha spent his days, surrounded by youthful companions, beautiful maidens, and the finest entertainers. Musicians played lulling melodies on flutes and harps, their notes weaving a tapestry of serenity and pleasure. Dancers, graceful as swans, performed intricate movements, their shimmering silks catching the sunlight. Every conversation was light-hearted, every activity designed for amusement, ensuring that no serious thought, no hint of the suffering world beyond the palace walls, could penetrate this carefully constructed bubble of bliss. The king's decree was absolute. Only joy and beauty were permitted within Siddhartha's sight and hearing, a relentless effort to bind him to this gilded existence. The palace itself was a fortress of opulent comfort, designed to anticipate and fulfill every conceivable need. Siddhartha's chambers were adorned with the softest silks and most luxurious fabrics, his bed a cloud of comfort. Golden lamps cast a warm, inviting glow, and fragrant incense burned gently, perfuming the air. The finest meals, prepared by master chefs, were served on exquisite platters, each dish a culinary masterpiece. Every sensory input was meticulously controlled, ensuring a constant stream of pleasant experiences, an environment so perfectly crafted that the idea of any lack or discomfort seemed utterly impossible, fostering a profound sense of contentment and sufficiency within its walls. The constant vigilance of the palace guards was a silent, ever-present reminder of the king's fear and his determination to maintain this illusion. High walls, gleaming under the sun, encircled the entire complex, impenetrable and formidable. Sentries stood at every gate and along every battlements, their eyes scanning the horizon, ensuring that no sight of old age, sickness, or death could ever reach the prince. Any signs of decay, any withered leaf, any struggling animal, were immediately removed or hidden from view, maintaining the pristine, unchanging facade of Siddhartha's world. This meticulous control was an act of profound craving Trishna, a desperate attempt to prevent the inevitable. This meticulously constructed environment, while seemingly offering ultimate contentment, paradoxically became a profound teacher of emptiness, sunyata. The very perfection and constant maintenance of this illusion hinted at its artificiality, suggesting that true peace, nirvana, could not be found in such a fabricated reality. The absence of suffering was not a genuine state of liberation, but an enforced ignorance, preventing the development of wisdom, prajna, that arises from a clear understanding of the Dharma. This golden cage, though beautiful, ultimately lacked the authenticity and depth that Siddhartha's spirit yearned for, fostering a subtle sense of anatta, a questioning of superficial existence. The king's efforts to cultivate a perpetual state of pleasure were, in essence, an attempt to prevent Siddhartha from developing non-attachment. By constantly gratifying every desire, he hoped to create such strong bonds of craving that the prince would never consider letting go of his luxurious life. However, this very excess would eventually lead Siddhartha to a deeper realization that true inner freedom, mushin, does not come from having everything, but from understanding the nature of desire itself and cultivating and observing awareness that transcends attachment. The constant external stimulation, rather than satisfying, subtly highlighted the limitations of sensory gratification. Even within this seemingly perfect world, Siddhartha, with his innate mindfulness, sati, began to perceive subtle dissonances. He noticed the fleeting nature of even the most beautiful dance, the temporary satisfaction of the most delicious meal. He observed the relentless efforts required to maintain the illusion of eternal youth and beauty, hinting at the underlying impermanence, anicca, that lay just beneath the surface. These quiet observations, this equanimous observation vipassana, were the first stirrings of his wisdom, prajna, allowing him to see beyond the king's carefully constructed reality and feel the silent call of a deeper truth. The palace, therefore, was not merely a place of luxury, but a crucible for Siddhartha's awakening. Its very perfection, its absolute denial of suffering, created the ideal conditions for his compassionate heart, Karuna, to yearn for a reality beyond its walls. The king's love, though misguided in its execution, inadvertently provided the context for Siddhartha to develop a profound understanding of the nature of attachment, suffering, and the path to inner peace. This seemingly perfect existence, devoid of challenge, would ultimately become the catalyst for his quest for true freedom, Wu Wei. As Siddhartha lived within this extraordinary yet artificial paradise, a quiet curiosity began to stir within him, a subtle yearning to understand the world beyond the gleaming walls that confined him. Despite the constant entertainment and comfort, whispers from beyond the palace, faint and infrequent, would occasionally penetrate his awareness, sparking a deeper inquiry into the true nature of existence, preparing him for the profound revelations that awaited him. Whispers from beyond the walls. Despite King Suddhodana's meticulous efforts to create a perfectly isolated world for Siddhartha, the sheer vastness of the world outside could not be entirely contained. Faintly, like distant echoes carried on the wind, subtle hints of a different reality occasionally managed to penetrate the high palace walls. Perhaps it was the distant, melancholic call of a street vendor, a sound unlike the curated melodies within the palace. Or the faint, earthy scent of a farmer's field, carried on a breeze that somehow bypassed the perfumed gardens. These were not direct confrontations with suffering, but rather fleeting sensory impressions that sparked a nascent curiosity, a quiet question in Siddhartha's observant mind, hinting at a world far more expansive than his gilded cage. One evening, as Siddhartha sat in his luxurious chambers, a soft, unfamiliar song drifted in through an open window, carried by the night air. It was a tune of simple beauty, sung by a common merchant returning home, its melody imbued with a subtle longing and the weariness of a day's labor. This was a sound entirely different from the polished, joyful music of the palace musicians, lacking their technical perfection, but carrying a raw, authentic emotion that resonated deeply within Siddhartha. It spoke of a life unburdened by opulence, yet rich in its own way, sparking an unnameable yearning within him, a desire to understand the source of such heartfelt expression, a quiet yearning for a different kind of contentment. Sometimes, a new servant would arrive at the palace, perhaps one who had not been as thoroughly vetted as the others, and in a moment of unguarded conversation, a story would slip out. A tale of a distant village, of a family's struggle, or the simple joys of community life. These were not direct descriptions of suffering in its most acute form, but they painted a picture of a world where life was lived differently, where experiences were not always perfectly pleasant or predictable. Siddhartha, with his innate observing awareness, would listen intently, piecing together these fragments, his mind beginning to perceive the vastness of existence beyond his immediate, controlled reality, a subtle expansion of his self-knowledge. These fleeting glimpses and overheard whispers acted like tiny cracks in the king's carefully constructed illusion. They were not enough to shatter the illusion entirely, but they planted seeds of doubt and curiosity in Siddhartha's mind. He began to sense that the perfect reality he inhabited was incomplete, that there was a whole spectrum of human experience intentionally hidden from him. This growing awareness, sati, of a world beyond his own, was the first gentle stirring of his wisdom, prajna. a realization that true understanding might require stepping outside the boundaries of his sheltered life, acknowledging the impermanence of his present situation. The king's efforts to maintain Siddhartha's blissful ignorance while born of love inadvertently became a powerful lesson in the nature of anicca, impermanence, and the futility of trying to control all aspects of reality. No matter how high the walls or how vigilant the guards, the truth, in its myriad forms, always finds a way to permeate. These subtle whispers were a testament to the natural flow, wu-wei, of existence, an undeniable current that cannot be permanently dammed. They revealed that true inner freedom, mushin, cannot be found in avoiding reality, but in embracing its fullness, in letting go of the illusion of control and accepting what is. The yearning that these whispers ignited within Siddhartha was not a craving Trishna for more pleasure, but a deeper longing for truth, for a comprehensive understanding of existence. It was a subtle sense of emptiness, sunyata, arising from the realization that his seemingly perfect life was missing an essential dimension. This was the beginning of his non-attachment to the gilded cage, a nascent desire to transcend the superficial and connect with the authentic. His heart, filled with an innate compassion, karuna, began to feel a pull towards a broader understanding of the human condition, an implicit call to explore the path, magga, to liberation for all. These small, seemingly insignificant moments were crucial, sacred pauses in Siddhartha's development. They were opportunities for his mind to step outside the prescribed narrative of his life and to engage in independent observation. Each faint sound, each overheard word became a point of contemplation, fueling his beginner's mind, shoshin, and encouraging a deeper equanimous observation, vipassana. They taught him that even in the most controlled environments, the seeds of awareness can sprout, growing into a powerful force that seeks to understand the true nature of suffering and the possibility of its cessation, nirodha. The growing curiosity within Siddhartha was a powerful indicator of his inherent Buddha mind, his original nature. It showed that despite all attempts to shield him, his spirit intrinsically sought wisdom and truth. This was not a rebellion, but an unfolding, a natural progression towards self-knowledge and inner freedom. The whispers from beyond the walls were not seductions to worldly pleasures, but invitations to a deeper, more profound reality, a call to understand the Dharma in its entirety, to move beyond the superficial, and embrace full presence in every moment. This period of subtle awakening, fueled by faint external stimuli, laid the groundwork for Siddhartha's eventual departure from the palace. It demonstrated that the path to enlightenment is often paved with small, almost imperceptible shifts in perception rather than dramatic revelations. His growing awareness, his subtle non-attachment to his luxurious life, was a testament to the power of inner transformation, showing that even within the most confining circumstances, the spirit can begin its journey towards liberation and a profound sense of sufficiency. As these whispers from beyond the walls slowly accumulated, they nurtured a growing sense of disquiet within Siddhartha, a feeling that something fundamental was missing from his perfectly orchestrated life. This subtle unease, an intuitive understanding of the impermanence of all things, would soon begin to manifest as a deeper questioning of the very nature of his existence, prompting him to seek a more profound truth, the seeds of disquiet. Despite the continuous stream of pleasures and diversions orchestrated by King Suddhodana, a growing sense of unease, a subtle disquiet, began to stir within Siddhartha's heart. It was not a feeling of overt unhappiness or discontent. for his life was outwardly perfect, but rather a profound intuition that something essential was missing. He observed the constant revelry, the endless beauty, and the ceaseless entertainment. Yet an inner voice whispered that this was not the full reality of existence. This feeling was akin to a subtle ache, a spiritual hunger that no amount of external gratification could satiate, hinting at a deeper truth beyond the superficial. Siddhartha began to perceive the fleeting nature of all the palace joys with an increasing clarity. The most enchanting music would fade, the most delicious food would be consumed, and the most captivating dance would end. Each peak of pleasure was inevitably followed by a return to a baseline, a subtle, unarticulated sense of craving for the next delightful sensation. This cycle, once unnoticed, now became apparent to his observing awareness. He recognized the inherent impermanence, anicca, in every experience, understanding that no external pleasure could offer lasting satisfaction or true inner peace, nirvana. This realization was a profound seed of wisdom, prajna, beginning to sprout within him. The very perfection of his environment, paradoxically, highlighted its artificiality. The absence of suffering, old age, sickness, and death was so absolute that it felt unnatural, a carefully constructed illusion rather than an organic reality. Siddhartha's sharp intellect, coupled with his growing mindfulness sati, allowed him to see through the veneer of constant joy. He began to question the authenticity of a happiness that required such immense effort to maintain, sensing that true contentment, sufficiency, must arise from a more fundamental and unconditioned source, not from the relentless avoidance of reality. This dawning realization was a subtle form of suffering, Trishna, not the pain of deprivation, but the discomfort of an unfulfilled spiritual longing. It was the suffering of knowing that something crucial was being withheld, that his understanding of the world was incomplete. This gentle disquiet was a precursor to his understanding of the first noble truth, that existence is marked by suffering, even in its most privileged forms. It was the internal call to seek the cessation, nirodha, of this subtle dissatisfaction, to uncover a truth that transcended the limitations of his golden cage. The king's relentless efforts to bind Siddhartha to worldly existence through pleasure, in fact, strengthened his capacity for non-attachment. By experiencing an excess of sensory gratification, Siddhartha learned, through direct observation, that these external delights did not bring ultimate fulfillment. He saw that clinging to these temporary pleasures only led to a subtle form of craving, a continuous seeking that never truly satisfied the spirit. This insight was a crucial step towards understanding anatta, the concept of no self, realizing that identification with fleeting sensations only perpetuates the cycle of dissatisfaction. Siddhartha's growing sense of unease was not a sign of ingratitude, but rather an indication of his inherent Buddha mind, his original nature, seeking to express itself fully. It was the natural unfolding of his potential for inner freedom, mushin, a deep-seated yearning for authentic experience and profound self-knowledge. This internal compass was guiding him towards a path, magga, that would lead to a more comprehensive understanding of the Dharma, one that embraced the full spectrum of existence, including its challenges, with equanimity. The subtle emptiness, sunyata, he felt amidst all the abundance was a profound insight. It was the realization that material possessions and sensory pleasures, no matter how exquisite, are ultimately devoid of inherent, lasting satisfaction. This emptiness was not a void of despair, but an opening, a space for deeper inquiry and spiritual growth. It was a recognition that true wealth lies not in what one accumulates, but in the liberation from craving and the cultivation of wisdom, prajna. a path that leads to genuine inner peace. This period of quiet introspection and dawning realization was a crucial time for Siddhartha to develop his equanimous observation, vipassana. He learned to observe his inner feelings of disquiet, his subtle yearning, without judgment or reactivity. This capacity for mindful presence, sati, allowed him to sit with his experiences, to understand their impermanent nature, and to recognize that true contentment, sufficiency, comes from within, from a state of acceptance and letting go, rather than from external conditions or the constant pursuit of pleasure. The seeds of disquiet, therefore, were not a failing of the king's plan, but a natural and necessary step in Siddhartha's spiritual evolution. They were the gentle nudges towards his ultimate destiny, guiding him to look beyond the superficial and to seek a deeper, more profound truth. These internal stirrings were preparing him for the monumental decision he would eventually make, a decision that would not only transform his own life, but would offer a path to liberation for countless beings throughout history. As Siddhartha's inner world began to subtly shift, questioning the very contentment he was supposed to embody, his observations of the world around him became more acute. He began to analyze the nature of happiness and suffering, recognizing the limitations of a life dedicated solely to pleasure, leading him to question the very essence of contentment itself. Questioning contentment. As Siddhartha matured, his innate observing awareness, sati, grew sharper, allowing him to perceive the fleeting nature of all palace joys with increasing clarity. He would watch the most captivating dance performance, admiring the grace and beauty, yet simultaneously recognizing that the moment of perfection was transient, destined to pass. The exquisite flavors of a royal banquet, though delightful to the palate, would inevitably fade, leaving behind a subtle craving, trishna, for the next sensation. This repeated observation led him to a profound understanding that happiness derived solely from external sources, from sensory gratification, was inherently impermanent, anicca, and could not provide lasting contentment or true inner peace. This realization was not one of cynicism or despair, but rather a quiet, thoughtful inquiry into the nature of contentment itself. Siddhartha began to question the very foundation of the happiness he was supposed to embody. If joy was so dependent on constant external stimulation and the absence of any discomfort, could it truly be called contentment? He saw that the king's elaborate efforts to create a perfect, unchanging world were a constant struggle against the natural flow, wu-wei, of existence, a battle against the inherent impermanence of all phenomena. This questioning was a crucial step towards developing his wisdom, prajna, and beginning his path towards self-knowledge. The understanding that craving for more pleasure only leads to temporary satisfaction became a central insight for Siddhartha. He noticed that as soon as one desire was fulfilled, another would inevitably arise, creating an endless cycle of wanting. This perpetual seeking, even in an environment where every wish was granted, revealed the inherent suffering, trishna, embedded in attachment. He saw that true peace, nirvana, could not be found in the endless pursuit of external delights, but rather in the liberation from craving itself, in the cessation, nirodha, of this continuous wanting, a profound realization that challenged the very core of his privileged existence. This period of deep introspection led Siddhartha to a subtle form of non-attachment. While he still participated in the palace's opulent life, his inner being began to cultivate a gentle detachment from its allure. He experienced the pleasures, but he did not cling to them. He recognized them as transient phenomena, beautiful but ultimately empty, sunyata, of inherent, lasting satisfaction. This growing capacity for letting go, for observing without being entangled, was a crucial step in his spiritual development, preparing him for the path Magga that would lead to genuine inner freedom, mushin, and a deeper understanding of the Dharma. The very perfection of his controlled environment, paradoxically, became a powerful teacher of anatta, the concept of no self. By being constantly surrounded by external definitions of happiness, Siddhartha began to question the nature of identity that was solely based on these fleeting sensations. He realized that true identity, his original nature, was not dependent on his royal status, his possessions, or his pleasures, but lay in a deeper, more fundamental aspect of his being. This introspection laid the groundwork for his eventual understanding that self-knowledge arises from looking within, not from external validation or accumulation. Siddhartha's quiet observation of this cycle of craving and temporary satisfaction was an early manifestation of vipassana, equanimous observation. He was not reacting to his experiences with judgment or aversion, but simply observing them with a clear and open mind. This mindful presence, sati, allowed him to see the patterns of attachment and impermanence clearly, leading to a profound understanding of the noble truths, even before he had formally encountered them. It showed him that true contentment, sufficiency, was an internal state, not an external condition, a state cultivated through conscious breathing and a beginner's mind, shoshin. His questioning of contentment was not an act of rebellion against his father, but a natural unfolding of his inherent Buddha mind. It was a deep spiritual inquiry, a yearning for authentic experience and profound truth that could not be satisfied by superficial pleasures. This internal quest, fueled by his growing wisdom, prajna, and compassion, karuna, was preparing him for a life dedicated to understanding and alleviating suffering for all beings, demonstrating that true spiritual awakening often begins with a questioning of what society defines as happiness. The king's efforts to immerse Siddhartha in pleasure, rather than binding him to the world, actually served to highlight the limitations of worldly happiness. The constant presence of luxury, rather than satisfying him, subtly taught him about the nature of craving and the impermanence of all things. This unintended lesson was far more powerful than any direct teaching, as it arose from Siddhartha's own direct experience and keen observation, leading him towards an intuitive understanding of the Dharma and the path to inner freedom. This profound questioning of contentment, arising from within the heart of the golden cage, marked a significant turning point in Siddhartha's intellectual and spiritual development. It signified his readiness to look beyond the illusions of his sheltered existence and to seek a deeper, more enduring truth, or this internal shift was preparing him for the crucial encounters that lay ahead, encounters that would challenge his understanding of the world and set him firmly on the path towards liberation. As Siddhartha's internal world began to question the very nature of happiness, his need for a connection to the world beyond the palace walls grew stronger. He would soon find a quiet ally in Channa, his trusted royal charioteer, a man who possessed knowledge of the realities that the king had so diligently concealed, a connection that would prove pivotal in his journey of discovery. Channa, the charioteer. Among the many servants and attendants within King Suddhodana's palace, Channa held a unique and trusted position. He was Siddhartha's personal charioteer, a man of quiet loyalty and deep familiarity with the prince. Channa was older than Siddhartha, his face etched with the subtle lines of experience, and his eyes held a knowing gaze that hinted at a life lived beyond the palace walls. Unlike the other youthful attendants carefully selected for Siddhartha's companionship, Channa had seen the world, understood its rhythms, and witnessed the full spectrum of human existence, including its joys and its sorrows. Channa's knowledge of the world beyond the palace was extensive and first-hand. He had traveled to distant villages, observed the lives of common people, and seen the realities of old age, sickness, and death, experiences meticulously hidden from Siddhartha. He carried within him the stories and sights of a world unburdened by royal artifice, a world where life unfolded in its raw, natural flow, Wu Wei. This quiet wisdom, born of direct experience, made him an invaluable, though perhaps unwitting, resource for Siddhartha's growing curiosity, a silent bridge between the prince's gilded cage and the authentic reality he yearned to understand. Siddhartha, with his increasingly sharp observing awareness, sati, began to notice the subtle differences in Channa. He saw that while Channa was respectful and dutiful, there was a groundedness about him, a certain equanimity that came from having faced life's challenges. The prince, in his moments of quiet reflection, would sometimes engage Channa in conversations, not about palace gossip or courtly affairs, but about the world outside, asking subtle questions that hinted at his deeper longing for self-knowledge and a broader understanding of existence. Channa, sensing the prince's genuine curiosity and profound gentleness, responded with a quiet honesty, though always careful not to overtly defy the king's strict decrees. He would speak of the changing seasons, the lives of farmers, the bustling markets, and the simple beauty of the natural world, always framing his descriptions in a way that would not directly reveal the suffering his king sought to conceal. Yet, even in these carefully chosen words, Siddhartha's innate wisdom, prajna, allowed him to read between the lines, to perceive the unspoken truths about impermanence, anicca, and the diverse experiences of human life. The bond between Siddhartha and Channa was one of quiet understanding and mutual respect. Channa, despite his humble position, became a crucial, albeit indirect, teacher for the prince. He offered glimpses of a reality that Siddhartha's father tried so desperately to hide, providing the prince with the mental tools to begin piecing together a more complete picture of the world. This relationship, born of trust and shared humanity, was a subtle yet powerful force in Siddhartha's unfolding journey towards inner freedom, mushin, and a deeper connection to the Dharma. Channa's presence in Siddhartha's life illustrates the principle that truth, in its various forms, cannot be entirely suppressed. Even within the most controlled environments, avenues for genuine information and authentic connection will inevitably arise. His role highlights the importance of open-mindedness and the willingness to listen, even to those in seemingly lesser positions, for wisdom can come from unexpected sources. This relationship was a sacred pause, a quiet opportunity for Siddhartha to gather vital information that would fuel his nascent non-attachment to his privileged existence and deepen his understanding of suffering, Trishna. The information Channa provided, though indirect, nourished Siddhartha's growing sense of emptiness, sunyata, regarding his current life. It confirmed his intuition that there was more to existence than the palace offered, and that his perceived contentment was built on a foundation of selective ignorance. These subtle revelations deepened his craving, not for worldly things, but for truth, for a comprehensive understanding of the path, magga, to genuine peace, nirvana, and the cessation, nirodha, of all forms of suffering. He yearned for a full presence in the world, not a curated one. Through Channa, Siddhartha began to develop a deeper sense of compassion, karuna, for those outside the palace walls. By hearing about their simple lives, their daily struggles, and their moments of joy, his empathy expanded beyond his immediate circle. This growing connection to the broader human experience was essential for his future role as a Buddha, as it laid the foundation for his universal message of relieving suffering for all sentient beings. It also deepened his self-knowledge, helping him to understand his own inherent capacity for metta, loving kindness. Channa's role as the charioteer also held a symbolic significance. He was the one who literally and figuratively drove Siddhartha towards his destiny, even if unknowingly. He represented the bridge between the inner world of the palace and the outer world of common humanity, providing the means for Siddhartha to eventually embark on his transformative journey. This relationship was a testament to the interconnectedness of all beings, showing how even seemingly small interactions can have profound and far-reaching consequences in the unfolding of a spiritual path. As Siddhartha's bond with Channa quietly deepened, his desire to experience reality firsthand grew stronger and more insistent. The whispers from beyond the walls, now subtly confirmed by his trusted charioteer, transformed into a powerful, intuitive call. He felt an undeniable pull towards understanding the full spectrum of human existence, a longing that would soon compel him to seek direct experience of the world that the king had so carefully hidden from him. The unseen world's call. As Siddhartha matured within the opulent confines of the palace, his quiet observations and the subtle whispers from Channa had nurtured a deep, intuitive pull towards understanding the full spectrum of human existence. It was not a rebellious urge, but a profound, undeniable longing that resonated from the core of his being. He had experienced the pinnacle of worldly pleasure, yet it had not brought him lasting contentment. His inherent wisdom, prajna, and sharp observing awareness, sati, told him that there was more to life than the curated perfection of his gilded cage, a truth that lay hidden beyond the high walls, beckoning him with an irresistible call to self-knowledge. This longing was not for more personal gratification, but for a comprehensive understanding of reality. Siddhartha felt a growing sense of emptiness, sunyata, in his perfectly orchestrated life, a realization that true peace, nirvana, could not be found in ignorance or avoidance. He understood that to truly comprehend the nature of existence, he needed to experience its full range, including the aspects his father had so carefully concealed. This was a yearning for authentic experience, for a direct encounter with the Dharma, not as an abstract concept, but as a lived reality, compelling him towards a path of deeper inquiry. The constant efforts to keep Siddhartha in a state of blissful ignorance, paradoxically, only intensified his desire for truth. The very perfection of the illusion highlighted its artificiality, making him acutely aware of what was missing. He sensed that true understanding, true inner freedom, mushin, lay in embracing the entirety of life, with all its challenges and impermanence, anicca, rather than in clinging to a fabricated happiness. This intuitive pull was a powerful testament to his original nature, his Buddha mind, seeking to unfold its full potential beyond the confines of his royal upbringing. Siddhartha's heart, filled with an innate compassion, karuna, began to ache with a subtle empathy for the unknown suffering of the world. He understood that if his own privileged existence, devoid of overt pain, still held a sense of disquiet, then the lives of those outside the palace, facing hardship and struggle, must contain a profound level of suffering, Trishna. This growing empathy was a crucial catalyst, transforming his personal quest for truth into a universal aspiration to find a path, magga, to liberation for all beings, a profound expression of metta, loving kindness. This deep, unspoken longing to see what the king had so carefully hidden was a pivotal moment in Siddhartha's development of non-attachment. He was not rejecting his family or his royal duties out of malice, but out of a profound spiritual necessity. His desire was to transcend the limitations of his current existence, to let go of the clinging to comfort and security in order to gain a deeper understanding of the cessation, nirodha, of suffering. This was an internal process of acceptance, a quiet resolve to embrace the unknown in pursuit of ultimate wisdom, prajna, and genuine contentment. The intuitive pull towards the unseen world was a manifestation of Siddhartha's growing mindfulness, sati. He was no longer merely observing the surface of his life, but delving into its deeper currents, questioning its underlying assumptions. This capacity for full presence, combined with his equanimous observation vipassana, allowed him to perceive the subtle call of a more authentic reality, guiding him towards a path of conscious breathing and self-knowledge that would ultimately lead to his profound awakening. The king's desperate measures to bind Siddhartha to the throne by creating an environment of perpetual pleasure inadvertently cultivated a profound sense of inner freedom within the prince. By having everything, Siddhartha learned that true sufficiency does not come from external accumulation, but from an internal state of non-craving and peace. This realization, born from his own experience, was a powerful preparation for his eventual renunciation, demonstrating that true wealth lies in the liberation from attachment, not in the possession of riches. This growing desire to experience reality firsthand was not a sudden impulse, but a gradual unfolding, nurtured by years of subtle observation and quiet contemplation. It was the culmination of his early insights, his questioning of contentment, and his innate sense of compassion. The strength of his resolve, though still unspoken, was beginning to solidify, preparing him for the monumental steps he would soon take, steps that would lead him away from the familiar comforts of his childhood and towards a destiny far grander than any earthly kingdom. The call of the unseen world was a testament to the fact that the human spirit, especially one destined for profound awakening, cannot be permanently confined or deceived. The truth, in its various forms, always finds a way to reveal itself, compelling the seeker to look beyond illusions and embrace the fullness of existence. Siddhartha's journey was not one of defiance, but of a natural and inevitable evolution towards his original nature, his Buddha mind, fulfilling the ancient prophecy in a way his father could never have anticipated. This quiet, yet powerful longing for direct experience of the world outside the palace walls was a clear sign of Siddhartha's readiness for a deeper understanding. Even amidst the luxurious trappings of his life, he was already demonstrating an early sense of detachment, a growing ability to observe without clinging, a crucial precursor to his profound spiritual transformation. An early sense of detachment. Even amidst the unparalleled luxury and constant sensory delights of the palace, Siddhartha began to demonstrate an innate capacity for detachment, a subtle non-attachment that set him apart. While he enjoyed the beauty, the music, and the companionship, his inner being remained somewhat unentangled, observing these experiences without clinging to them as sources of ultimate happiness. He participated gracefully in all the festivities, yet his mind maintained a quiet space, an observing awareness, sati, that perceived the fleeting nature of all external phenomena, recognizing their inherent impermanence, anicca. This was not aloofness, but a profound inner freedom, mushin, beginning to blossom. This nascent detachment was a direct result of his growing wisdom, prajna, and his deep understanding that true happiness is not bound by external conditions or material possessions. He had everything a prince could desire: wealth, power, beauty, and love. Yet he recognized that these were transient and could not provide lasting contentment, nirvana. This realization, born from his own experience of the limits of pleasure, taught him that clinging, trishna, to external things ultimately leads to suffering. His ability to let go, even subtly, of the need for constant gratification was a powerful early step on his path to liberation. Siddhartha's capacity for equanimous observation, vipassana, allowed him to experience the lavishness of his life without being overwhelmed or completely identified with it. He saw the palace as a beautiful but ultimately artificial construct, a temporary stage for his existence. This perspective fostered a sense of anatta, recognizing that his true self, his original nature, was not defined by his royal status or his possessions, but by something far deeper and more fundamental. This internal spaciousness, this sense of emptiness, sunyata, in relation to external forms, was a crucial development in his self-knowledge. This early sense of detachment was also a manifestation of his inherent compassion, karuna. By not being fully bound by his own pleasures, his heart was more open to the subtle whispers of suffering that occasionally penetrated the palace walls. He understood that if he, with all his comforts, felt a subtle disquiet, then those who lacked such privileges must experience a profound level of suffering. This empathy fueled his desire to find a path, magga, to alleviate not just his own inner longing, but the suffering of all beings, a profound expression of metta, loving kindness. The king's efforts to cultivate attachment through constant pleasure inadvertently strengthened Siddhartha's capacity for non-attachment. By experiencing an excess of gratification, Siddhartha learned, through direct observation, that more external pleasure did not lead to more lasting happiness. This inverse lesson was far more effective than any direct teaching, as it arose from his own lived experience, guiding him towards the understanding that true contentment, sufficiency, comes from within, from a state of liberation from craving and the acceptance of what is, wu wei. This quiet internal process of letting go, even before any external action, was a crucial aspect of his spiritual development. It demonstrated that the path to cessation, nirodha, of suffering, begins with an internal shift in perspective, a re-evaluation of what truly brings peace. Siddhartha was learning to find sacred pauses within his busy royal life, moments of conscious breathing and full presence where he could connect with his Buddha mind, his inherent capacity for wisdom and inner freedom. His detachment was not a rejection of beauty or joy, but an understanding of their true nature. They are impermanent, conditioned phenomena. He could appreciate the splendor of the palace gardens without clinging to them, recognizing that their beauty was fleeting. This equanimity, this ability to hold experiences lightly, was a testament to his growing spiritual maturity and his readiness to move beyond the superficial towards a deeper, more enduring truth, preparing him for the noble truths that would define his future teachings. This early stage of non-attachment was a subtle yet powerful indication of Siddhartha's destiny. It showed that his spirit was intrinsically drawn to liberation, to a path that transcended worldly concerns. The golden cage, designed to bind him, was instead becoming a crucible for his awakening, sharpening his awareness and deepening his resolve to seek a truth that lay beyond the illusions of his birthright. His internal compass was now firmly set on a course towards ultimate understanding. The profound significance of this early detachment lies in its demonstration that true spiritual transformation begins from within, regardless of external circumstances. Siddhartha, with all the world's supposed comforts at his fingertips, still felt the call to something more profound, something that only inner freedom could provide. This quiet strength, this unwavering commitment to truth, was a powerful precursor to his eventual renunciation, a testament to the undeniable pull of his original nature. As Siddhartha's sense of non-attachment deepened, he began to understand that true sufficiency did not come from accumulating more, but from recognizing the inherent completeness within himself. This profound internal shift, this dawning awareness of his own inner peace, would soon lead him to question the very foundations of his pampered existence, preparing him for a momentous decision: inner sufficiency. Even amidst the endless opulence and sensory indulgence of the palace, Siddhartha's moments of deep contemplation began to reveal an inherent sufficiency within himself. He would often retreat to a quiet corner of the expansive gardens, or sit by a serene lotus pond, allowing his mind to settle. In these sacred pauses, he experienced a profound sense of inner peace, nirvana, a stillness that was entirely independent of his external surroundings. This was a direct, unmediated realization that true contentment did not stem from the accumulation of pleasures or the absence of discomfort, but from an internal state of being, a deep wellspring of peace that resided within his own heart, his original nature. This dawning understanding of inner sufficiency was a powerful antidote to the king's efforts to bind him through external gratification. Siddhartha realized that the relentless pursuit of pleasure, driven by craving, trishna, was an endless cycle that could never truly satisfy. Instead, he found that by simply being present, by cultivating conscious breathing and an observing awareness, sati, he could access a profound sense of completeness that was always available, regardless of whether he was surrounded by luxury or simplicity. This was a crucial step in his path, Magga, towards liberation, demonstrating that true wealth lies not in what one possesses, but in the freedom from wanting. His growing awareness, prajna, revealed that the emptiness, sunyata, he had sometimes felt amidst all the abundance was not a void to be filled by more external things, but an opening to a deeper truth. It was the realization that material possessions, no matter how exquisite, are ultimately devoid of inherent, lasting satisfaction. This emptiness, when understood with wisdom, became a space for genuine inner peace to arise, a recognition of his own Buddha mind, his innate capacity for sufficiency and self-knowledge, unconditioned by the external world. This profound insight into his own inner completeness fostered a deep sense of non-attachment. Siddhartha began to understand that clinging to external conditions for happiness only created suffering, trishna, because all external things are subject to impermanence, anicca. By recognizing his inherent sufficiency, he was able to let go of the need for constant external validation or gratification. This equanimity, this ability to meet all experiences with an even mind, allowed him to move through the palace life with a quiet grace, participating without being entangled, cultivating a true inner freedom, mushin. The king's elaborate creation of a perfect world, designed to prevent any thought of renunciation, inadvertently taught Siddhartha the most profound lesson: that true happiness is not about avoiding suffering, but about transcending the conditions that create it. By having every desire met, he learned that the fulfillment of desires does not lead to lasting peace, but rather to a continuous cycle of craving. This direct experience was a powerful impetus for him to seek the cessation, nirodha, of this cycle, to find a path that offered genuine and enduring contentment, a path rooted in the Dharma. Siddhartha's moments of deep contemplation, where he connected with this inner sufficiency, were powerful examples of vipassana, equanimous observation. He was not striving for a particular state, but simply observing what arose within him, allowing his mind to settle into its natural state of clarity and peace. This mindful presence, sati, allowed him to see that everything he truly needed was already within him, waiting to be discovered, cultivated through conscious breathing and a beginner's mind. Shoshin, unburdened by preconceived notions. This dawning awareness of his inner completeness also deepened his compassion karuna. He realized that if he, with all his privileges, could find such peace within, then this potential must exist within all beings, regardless of their external circumstances. This understanding fueled his desire to share this path of liberation, to help others discover their own inherent sufficiency and freedom from suffering, a profound expression of metta, loving kindness that would later become the foundation of his teachings. The realization of inner sufficiency was a crucial step in Siddhartha's journey toward embracing his original nature. It was the understanding that his Buddha mind was not something to be achieved in the future, but a present reality to be realized. This profound self-knowledge empowered him to look beyond the illusions of his birthright and to prepare for a life dedicated to uncovering and sharing this universal truth, a truth that offered genuine contentment and inner freedom to all who sought it. This inherent sufficiency, discovered through quiet introspection, was a powerful confirmation of the prophecy that foretold his path to awakening. It showed that his destiny was not to be a king of material realms, but a king of the spirit, one who would guide others to their own inner kingdoms of peace. This profound internal shift was preparing him for the monumental decision he would soon face, a decision that would challenge his father's deepest fears and set him firmly on the path of renunciation. As Siddhartha's inner peace deepened, rooted in his profound sense of sufficiency, King Suddhodana's anxieties reached a fever pitch. He sensed a growing distance in his son, an internal world that was slipping beyond his control, prompting him to enact even more desperate measures to bind Siddhartha to his royal destiny. The king's desperate measures. King Suddhodana, now acutely aware of Siddhartha's deepening contemplative nature and his subtle detachment from palace life, felt his anxieties escalate to a fever pitch. The prophecy of renunciation, which had once been a distant fear, now seemed imminent and unavoidable. He perceived his son's quiet introspection not as a sign of spiritual awakening, but as a dangerous inclination that threatened to dismantle all his hopes for the Shakya dynasty. His profound craving, Trishna, for Siddhartha to remain a worldly ruler drove him to enact even more desperate and frantic measures, hoping to bind his son irrevocably to the throne through an overwhelming display of sensory pleasure and inescapable responsibility. He ordered an unprecedented increase in palace festivities, ensuring that Siddhartha's days and nights were a continuous, unbroken chain of entertainment and celebration. More musicians were hired, their melodies never ceasing. More dancers performed, their graceful movements a constant, captivating spectacle. The gardens were illuminated with thousands of flickering lamps, transforming night into an eternal twilight of revelry. Every moment was filled with laughter, feasting, and sensory delights, a relentless barrage designed to leave no space for quiet thought or introspection, hoping to drown out any inner call towards non-attachment. Security around the palace was tightened to an extreme degree. Guards were positioned at every vantage point, their vigilance absolute. No one was permitted to enter or leave without the king's express permission, and any servant suspected of speaking about the outside world or philosophical matters was immediately dismissed. The walls were reinforced, the gates secured, creating an impenetrable fortress of pleasure. This desperate attempt to control Siddhartha's environment was a futile struggle against the natural flow, wu-wei, of existence, a profound act of clinging that only highlighted the king's own suffering, trishna, and his inability to accept impermanence, anicca. The king even arranged for Siddhartha to be constantly surrounded by beautiful young women, their charm and allure intended to deepen his attachment to conjugal life and the pleasures of the senses. He hoped that the bonds of physical affection and the joys of family, especially with his beloved wife Yasodhara and young son Rahula, would prove strong enough to outweigh any spiritual yearning. This was a desperate gamble, an attempt to use human connection as a chain to bind his son to the worldly path, believing that such profound personal attachments would prevent any thoughts of inner freedom, mushin. This intensified effort by King Suddhodana highlights the profound futility of trying to control another's destiny, especially when that destiny is spiritual in nature. His actions, though stemming from a father's love, were ultimately an expression of his own deep attachment and fear of loss, which generated immense suffering for himself. He failed to recognize that true contentment, nirvana, and wisdom, prajna, cannot be forced or prevented by external means, but arise from an internal process of self-knowledge and acceptance of reality as it is, not as he wished it to be. The king's desperate measures, rather than securing Siddhartha's worldly path, inadvertently provided him with the ultimate lesson in the limitations of material existence. By experiencing the absolute peak of sensory pleasure, Siddhartha gained a profound understanding that even in such perfection, a deeper dissatisfaction can arise if one is disconnected from the full spectrum of reality. This overabundance became a powerful catalyst for his recognition of emptiness, sunyata, in external forms, and reinforced his path towards non-attachment and the cessation, nirodha, of suffering. Despite the relentless distractions, Siddhartha's observing awareness, sati, remained keen. He moved through the heightened festivities with a quiet grace, participating without being fully consumed. He saw the beauty, but also the effort behind it. He heard the laughter, but also sensed the underlying impermanence, anicca, of such fleeting joy. This equanimous observation, vipassana, allowed him to maintain his inner peace, even amidst the king's frantic efforts, strengthening his resolve and deepening his understanding of the Dharma. The king's actions, though intended to prevent Siddhartha from embracing the path, magga of a renunciate, actually served to sharpen his resolve. The more he was pushed towards worldly indulgence, the more his inner compass pointed towards a deeper truth, a path of inner freedom and self-knowledge. This period of intense external pressure became a crucible for his spiritual growth, solidifying his commitment to seek a more profound and lasting form of contentment, sufficiency, that transcended the limitations of his royal birthright. This narrative underscores the powerful truth that true spiritual awakening is an internal process that cannot be dictated or suppressed by external forces. The king's love, though misguided in its execution, ultimately provided the context for Siddhartha to develop an unshakable commitment to his original nature, his Buddha mind. His desperate efforts became the final ironic push that would lead Siddhartha to break free from the golden cage and embark on his monumental quest for enlightenment, demonstrating the power of conscious breathing even in chaos. As King Suddhodana's efforts reached their zenith, trying to desperately bind his son to the world, Siddhartha's inner world was simultaneously undergoing a profound transformation. He was perceiving the constructed nature of his reality, not with anger, but with a deep and quiet wisdom, preparing him for the ultimate assertion of his original nature, the gentle stirring of wisdom. Amidst the king's frantic efforts to bind him to worldly pleasures, Siddhartha's observing awareness, sati, sharpened to an extraordinary degree. He was no longer merely a prince enjoying his opulent life. He was an acute observer, perceiving the constructed nature of his reality with profound clarity. He saw the intricate web of illusion his father had woven, not with anger or resentment, but with a deep, quiet wisdom, prajna. He understood that every beautiful sight, every melodious sound, every delightful taste was meticulously placed to prevent him from seeing the truth of impermanence, anicca, and the inherent suffering, trishna, that underpins all conditioned existence. This was a pivotal moment of self-knowledge, a realization that true contentment lay beyond the carefully curated facade. Siddhartha perceived the palace, with all its splendor, as a magnificent, yet ultimately fragile illusion. He recognized that the absence of old age, sickness, and death within its walls was not a natural state of being, but a deliberate act of suppression. His equanimous observation, vipassana, allowed him to see through the veneer of constant youth and vitality, understanding that these were merely temporary states subject to change and decay. This insight into the emptiness, sunyata, of external forms, the realization that they lacked inherent, lasting satisfaction, was a powerful catalyst for his growing non-attachment and his yearning for a truth that transcended all illusions. This profound understanding was not born of intellectual study alone, but from a deep, intuitive knowing, a direct connection to his original nature, his Buddha mind. He recognized that his inner freedom, mushin, was not dependent on his external circumstances, but was an inherent quality of his being, waiting to be fully realized. The king's desperate measures, rather than binding him, served to highlight the limitations of worldly power and the futility of trying to control the natural flow, wu wei, of existence. Siddhartha was gently, yet undeniably, asserting his true self, preparing to follow the path magga that had been prophesied for him. His compassionate heart, karuna, deepened as he perceived the suffering, trishna, not only of the world beyond the walls, but also of his own father, who was so deeply entangled in his craving for control and his fear of loss. Siddhartha understood that true metta, loving kindness, extended to all beings, including those who were caught in their own illusions. This universal empathy fueled his resolve to seek the cessation, nirodha, of suffering, not just for himself, but for all sentient beings, realizing that liberation was a shared journey, a collective aspiration for genuine inner peace. The quiet assertion of his original nature was a powerful testament to the fact that true spiritual awakening cannot be suppressed. The seeds of wisdom, prajna, planted at his birth, nurtured by his early contemplations and subtle observations, were now blossoming into an unshakable resolve. He was ready to embrace the fullness of the Dharma, to step beyond the golden cage and confront the realities of life head-on, not with fear, but with courage, wisdom, and an unwavering commitment to truth, understanding that true sufficiency lies within. This period of heightened awareness was crucial for Siddhartha to develop the profound acceptance that would characterize his later enlightenment. He accepted the reality of his privileged life without clinging, and he accepted the inevitable truth of suffering without aversion. This equanimity, born of deep self-knowledge and mindful presence, sati, allowed him to move towards his destiny with grace and determination, understanding that the path to inner freedom was one of letting go and embracing the natural unfolding of his spiritual journey. The king's final frantic attempts to immerse Siddhartha in pleasure inadvertently provided him with the ultimate lesson in the limitations of attachment. By experiencing the absolute peak of sensory gratification, Siddhartha gained an unshakable understanding that lasting contentment, nirvana, could not be found in external conditions. This profound insight, born from his own direct experience, solidified his commitment to seek a deeper, more enduring truth, one that lay beyond the illusions of his birthright, a truth that would liberate him from the cycle of karma. Siddhartha's inner transformation was a silent revolution, a gentle yet powerful shift in consciousness that prepared him for the monumental decision he would soon make. He was no longer just a prince, he was a seeker, a being on the cusp of a profound awakening, ready to step into his destiny as a Buddha. The whispers from beyond the walls, the subtle disquiet, the questioning of contentment, and the dawning of inner sufficiency had all led him to this point, a moment of profound clarity and unwavering resolve. This gentle stirring of wisdom, this quiet yet powerful assertion of his original nature, marked the culmination of Siddhartha's childhood. He had learned all that his royal life could teach him, and now his spirit yearned for something more, something that only the world beyond the palace could offer. He was ready to leave behind the comfort and security of his birthright, not in defiance, but in fulfillment of a higher calling, a journey that would forever change the course of human history, beginning with his farewell to the familiar. As our journey through the early life of Siddhartha Gautama gently concludes, allow your awareness to resettle softly within your own body, here and now. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your breath, a natural rhythm that anchors you to this precious moment. There is nothing else you need to do, nothing to strive for or achieve. You are simply here, breathing, existing, and that, in its beautiful simplicity, is profoundly sufficient. Allow yourself to release any lingering thoughts or tensions, letting them drift away like clouds across a vast open sky, embracing the natural flow of this moment. Rest deeply in this understanding that, like Siddhartha, you too possess an inherent wisdom, a Buddha mind, an original nature that is complete and untouched by the transient concerns of the world. Just as he found a quiet sufficiency within, even amidst external opulence, you too can access a profound inner peace, nirvana, that resides within you, independent of circumstances. Allow these words to prepare you for a night of deep, restorative sleep, a time for your mind and body to replenish, to find profound rest and inner freedom, mushin. As you drift towards slumber, know that you are held in a space of complete acceptance and compassion, metta. There is no need for striving, no need for perfection. Simply allow yourself to be, to let go, and to surrender to the gentle embrace of sleep. This is your sanctuary, a place where you can always return to find peace and quiet contemplation. If these moments of shared wisdom have resonated deeply within your being, if this space offers you solace, please consider subscribing to keep this haven of peace readily accessible. May your dreams be filled with tranquility, and may you awaken refreshed, renewed, and deeply connected to your own inner sufficiency. Good night.